which is the good news. So we thought we'd split this up, and you've already heard from me, so I'm just going to do one of these, and then the other guys are going to do a couple. So I'm actually going to provide some feedback to group number one around the lack of understanding and accessibility in the community. There was a universal, when we say universal with three of us, we'll go with universal enjoyment of top-down and bottom-up. Let's use this both ways and address the issue from both sides. Different approaches are going to be required, obviously, but this isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. The whole getting this into a school curriculum is a fabulous idea. Make it mandatory. It's one of the ways, it's the stick approach to getting stuff done, but it will be effective. And having a 13-year-old daughter who keeps coming back home and telling me what I'm doing wrong, it actually gets up through the generations as well. One of the questions to consider is, how do you get buy-in from the teachers? One more thing to teach, one more thing to learn. What's in it for them, apart from you should be doing it. So we don't have the answer to the question, but there's going to be always a reluctance to change from those perspectives. Who should you be connecting with? Obviously, the school boards is the key one. Kathleen Wynne wouldn't be a bad idea, seeing as though she is a huge proponent of education, and being Premier has a bit of a sway over what's happening. The question is, and this is, again, something that's going to go through all of this, is who are your early adopters? Who are the first people you can start building the momentum with? And I wouldn't count out the kids. The school's kids have equity clubs. They're interested in areas. Get them to percolate the idea up themselves that this is important. Teacher training organisation. Get the teachers when they're young and impressionable. The general comments. I think we all believe this is totally doable. This is a public policy piece which, with the buy-in of the community and a year of the right meetings, is absolutely doable. It's fabulous. Congratulations. Thank you.
Fantastic, everybody. And I think a lot of the comments are just throughout all of them, so I'll just add to that. I think when Pooja asked me to come here today, I spent a lot of my time working with companies at the Impact Center, helping them develop their pitch. I actually thought I was coming here today to do that, so this is a really nice surprise that it's much more in depth on that. So next time I'll have to ask for more details as well, so I can be more prepared. But I just have to say, I'm absolutely blown away with what can be accomplished. I should have been here from the beginning because I apparently missed a lot. Great job. On the elevator use, I guess number 2, just mind-blowing. What a great example of how you need to engage the end user. I was personally, I thought that the video is a very, very powerful way, and that speaks to a lot of the other ones as well. What a great format for communicating these ideas. Clearly this needs a solution. I'm shocked that it's not out there. It's like one of those moments you go, oh wow, this doesn't exist. Why doesn't it? And I think a great point was brought up. That video was shot at Toronto Rehab. Yeah, wow. Don't need to say any more about that. I think technologically what's needed to interface with the elevator, and later on through the day, I began to think about there might be multiple solutions. If an end user doesn't have the ability to use an app, what are some other ways? And I really liked how it went a little bit farther and thought about sort of haptic feedback and other things that it involved. That was great. And an unfortunate thing throughout a lot of these as well is who pays? Who's the customer, and how do we do that? And I think a lot of times that's going to take some policy change. This is the world you guys live in. I'm just starting to learn about it, and it's great. So choosing that low-hanging fruit is much more relevant in this space, I think. And who you need to connect with, I think clearly the elevator manufacturers are key. How do you retrofit in those things? But other than that, unless people have something I missed, I will pass it on to number 3.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you to the organizers and to all of you. It's been a real privilege for me to be here today, and I've learned a lot myself, so thank you. Number 3 is around accessibility and getting on the airplane and traveling. And although the really obvious thing or the first sort of huge barrier is getting on the plane and getting to your seat, it's just the first of many problems, because you've got to transport, and often you have to transport commodes and other accessible mobility items and assistive devices, and it's just the beginning of a very large problem. And at March of Dimes, we have an accessibility travel group, and I know how big of an issue this is, and how it can be often so undignifying, the whole experience. So I think it's a very important issue, and I think it's so large that you've got to break it down into smaller. Yes, the chair idea is amazing, and I think I've never thought of just having a place for the chair instead of transferring, because I know transferring, always transferring, and then it would be so nice just to be able to wheel the chair in and put it in a place and have many of the other issues related to accessibility dealt with in that same space. So I think I thought that was a really good approach. Because it's such a large problem with many parts, then you've got to start working with the airlines, maybe smaller airlines, and you've got to start dealing with the transportation industry and all the stakeholders in that, as well as of course the customers. Start with the customer, and because all these costs or changes get the cost gets transferred down to the customer. So it is a big issue, and I know people are the airlines are starting to deal with it, but not nearly fast enough or to the degree that we would like. So I guess that's where I would start with. I would start connecting with the accessible travel groups and airlines and the stakeholders, and the airline workers, of course, the ones that are trying to accommodate the individual customer. And that's it. Okay, so number 4. Okay.
Stuart was here all day, so we ended up taking 2 and he just one. So we got to
Sick of my voice.
We got to pick up here. The education and awareness team with the great personal story about getting a job and basically increasing awareness at the workplace. Those personal stories are so powerful. Again, a thread throughout increasing awareness. I love the whole idea for me that I got from this was really well thought out ways of improving engagement and success in the training. Interactive with end users. It blew me away today, and I can imagine that's a great format. Sliding it in with team building exercises for corporate customers. That's a great way to do it, I thought. I think there was 2 sort of markets talked about, kids and corporations. I think Fortune 500 was mentioned, great target, but I think we need to maybe start smaller. Those are 2 completely different products, It was well thought out, and I think on the corporate side, the low-hanging fruit, as again came up in most of them, start with the small companies that are much more engaged and progressive towards accessibility. Start with those, get some wins, and move on up the chain. I think it's clear for the schools who to connect with. I'm not sure. I think that's all I'll say. I think the one point I might actually hand it back to you on the Ministry of Education and Kathleen Wynn. There was something you mentioned there that was a very good feedback about who to connect with. I'm not sure I translated well, so I'll pass it to you on that point.
I'm actually not sure I've got much more to add than, I've got some notes somewhere. Was it?
There was some initiative of Kathleen Wynn you mentioned.
Oh, it's just really getting the buy-in from the people who care, who have the ability to put pressure on others. You know, this is a skill, and I'm incredibly fortunate that actually Peter's told me this is what Peter does for a living, around that whole area of find your champions and tell them stories and give an ability for your champions to look good and win. You don't need to be the lead when you're doing a lot of public policy stuff, the face of it. You provide the information, you give the people who have the power the ability to look at it and sort of take the credit. So that's a sort of a common theme through, you know, a lot of the education awareness. There were about 3 where we sat down and said, a lot of these comments, the 3 groups should actually talk to each other, but there's a lot of comments all the way through. And one of the comments specifically on this one that you brought up as part of the group was, when it's policy, give a carrot and a stick. You can't just rely on make this happen, it's the right thing to do and legislate it. You've got to find that motivator. What is the value proposition to the people to adopt it? So I really like that. You know, there's laws that says you have to do it, and by the way, you get a tax credit if you do. That type of approach is great.
Sorry. Well needed. Great stuff.
You're the first one.
That was four.
Well, that was 4? Okay, it goes back to me. And this is on mindset and attitude, and we all loved, we are not the problem, you are the problem. And although that might be a little edgy, it gets people's attention, and you know, some might not like it, some might, but it was powerful, right? And I think that's a really good way to get people's attention. And we also really like the idea of the documentary, you know, and getting the story out there. And of course, if you can get Michael Moore, all the better. That would be great. And I guess, yeah, and integration into the mainstream media, using social media as much as you can to get your message out there, change attitude, and you know, not just have separate, like a separate documentary or separate, like try to get the integration happening, you know, in all the media. And who to connect with? Well, you can connect with March Dimes, and all of us actually, all the different organizations. We actually talked about pulling together a common message for, between all of our organizations, and I thought that was a great idea because that's much stronger than everybody having their own individual message. So I think that's about it. Do you guys have anything else to add? Oh, I like the interactive communication, like having little episodes where you have sort of a timeline and you're getting updated all the time on a story, and it gets people involved in the story, and they want to see the next episode, and